From the age of 7 up until 14, we will start to then experience a crystallization and especially emotional imprinting around going from being very imaginative to becoming aware of our bodies. So the Saturn opposition from the age from at 14 when it peaks and it returns to this point of opposition is a developing phase of our bodies and the expression of ourselves. This is a very crucial time because in our psychological development, we will learn about certain emotional imperfections that we carry, inadequacies, limitations. We'll learn to let go, well, not learn, but we'll develop out of this childlike innocence that we carry, and we'll begin to develop progressively a way of understanding ourselves through social context. So this is the phase from 7 to 14 that develops our emotional and social understanding. We begin to recognize that we can start speaking. We begin to realize that we can start speaking in sentences that are coherent and appear in a sense responsible and adult-like. We can interact with things in a way that is not as clumsy or needs a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to use the word surveillance, but that's not really what it's about. It's not as assertive and as privacy oriented. But parents generally from the ages of 0 up until 7 will need to look after their children a lot more than say from the ages of 7 up until 14, simply because at that point we can begin to articulate ourselves. We can identify that if there's something that's happening, we can call for help. Or so there's a tendency to open up the boundaries for us during this period of time. And for parents that are watching the development of their child go from 7 to 14, you'll actually start to notice that they will want to pull away from you more. They want their own independence, their own sense of freedom a little bit, because it is here where this emotional sense of self is beginning to form in relation to another person. And so that's why at a Saturn opposition, it can be very, very difficult for parents to help work with the child or the youngster, because the hormones that are beginning to develop during this period of time are essentially not grounded. In fact, I would argue that the stability of the endocrine system is essentially formed fully and are working in a way that is totally healthy from the age of 30 onwards, where there is now a higher, transformation into higher expression of Saturn. But at this point, there's just a lot of emotions in all of just in random places. There is a lack of objectivity, of course, because it's natural at the age of 14 to not really see deeper into life. You haven't experienced it. How could you? So during this period of Saturn in an opposition to your natal Saturn, the social development moves into wanting to hang out with friends, developing a sense of, why do I have certain feelings towards another person? And how do those feelings show up as very fleeting? At the age of 14, I'm sure when you had your first crush or your first love, it felt as if it was for eternity. It felt as if it was this point of complete marriage and, no separation could exist. And yet simultaneously, from an adult's perspective, you know that this is just a phase. And it is just a phase. It is a phase in our time where Saturn is transiting from the first quarter square up until the opposition, where we are essentially growing into a little person that says, oh, I like that, or I don't like that. I'd like to assert my authority here. I don't know how to assert my authority here. Here, I'm testing out my boundaries. I'm testing out your boundaries. Where do you give me freedom? Where do you not give me freedom? What is correct? What is not correct? Because essentially, this is a whole entire development of sense of self that is occurring. And it becomes social in that way. So for anybody that is working with this, with the Saturn in opposition through being a parent to the child, or counseling somebody that is a parent to somebody that's got that, or essentially if you're looking at your own understanding of what that could have occurred during that period of time, to process it, know that this is where your sense of self was developing into something deeper, something more tangible, something that is your sense of self, your boundaries. And you wouldn't really know how to do this. So the way that it works is by stumbling into things and feeling oppressed by other people, feeling the boundaries being pressed by other people. Okay.